During the height of the Cold War, while the entire world's attention was on America's race to the moon, the Soviet Union had their eyes on something way, way more terrifying. They were aiming for Venus, a planet that was a complete mystery, and get this, they were planning a one-way trip. This is the incredible story of that mission, a totally forgotten chapter of the space race, where the real prize wasn't just reaching another world, it was surviving it. And I'm not exaggerating here. This wasn't really exploration. It was a series of suicide missions. The Soviets literally built probes that were designed to fail, to crash, to burn up, to be crushed, all for the slimmest hope of sending back just a few seconds of data from a world nobody had ever seen. The stakes were just astronomical, because what they might find there, well, it was a complete and terrifying unknown. So why Venus? To really get that, we have to rewind the clock back to the space race. You have to remember, this was never just about science. It was about global dominance, plain and simple, and each superpower needed a spectacular target to prove they were the best.
America, as we all know, chose the moon. It was a safe bet, a known quantity you could literally see with a telescope. But the Soviets, they had already landed unmanned probes on the moon, so they were kind of like, been there, done that. They set their sights on a much, much bigger prize, Venus. Their logic was kind of epic. If America can land on the moon, we can land in hell itself.
And really, that was the ultimate question, wasn't it? Venus was a total mystery box. Its clouds are so thick, you can't see a thing. So for all anyone knew, there could be anything under there. Lush jungles, huge oceans, maybe even some kind of alien life. The Soviets knew that being the first to open that box would be a bigger propaganda victory than anything America could do on the familiar old moon. But here's the thing, Venus wasn't about to give up its secrets easily. It's almost like the planet itself became the villain in the story, actively fighting back and just destroying everything the Soviets sent its way. I mean, just look at this list. It is a relentless, brutal series of failures. Probe after probe was launched only to go silent. Venera 1 and 2, poof, lost contact. Venera 3 went dead and just smashed into the surface. Then Venera 4, 5, and 6, they were completely obliterated in the atmosphere before they even got close to the ground. It was becoming painfully clear that Venus wasn't just hostile, it was a planetary death trap.
And this is the crucial turning point. The scientists finally realized their probes weren't just failing, they were being physically destroyed. The atmospheric pressure was so immense, so unbelievably powerful, that it was literally squeezing their spacecraft flat, just like you'd crush an empty soda can. That one discovery, well, it changed everything.
So after years of getting absolutely beaten down by this planet, the Soviets changed tactics. They basically said, okay, if Venus is going to crush our probes, then we're going to build a probe that it can't crush. And what they came up with was this engineering marvel, born right out of all those failures. So they built Venera 7, and this thing, it was an absolute tank, a total beast, over-engineered, incredibly heavy. They had to strip out most of the scientific instruments because its only mission, its one and only goal, was to survive the descent and transmit, well, anything from the surface. It was all about durability over discovery. And you know what? It actually worked. For 23 agonizing minutes, Venera 7 transmitted from the surface, and the first piece of data it sent back was the temperature. A staggering 465 degrees Celsius, that's 869 degrees Fahrenheit. To put that in perspective, that's more than twice as hot as your kitchen oven on its highest setting. It's hot enough to melt lead. Next up was the pressure. By analyzing that faint little signal, scientists calculated the pressure on the surface was 90 times greater than it is here on Earth. 90. That's the same amount of pressure you'd feel if you were 1 kilometer deep in the ocean. They finally had a number for the force that was crushing all their earlier probes. And there was another huge surprise. As the probe was falling, they noticed its radio signal was shifting a little bit. They realized this Doppler shift was happening because the probe was being violently shoved sideways. The cause? Hurricane-force winds raging at 360 kilometers per hour. That's 224 miles per hour, way faster than any hurricane we've ever seen on Earth. So at this point, the Soviets knew what they were up against. They had officially survived hell. So what was the next logical step? Well, now they had to see it and even hear it for the very first time.
And this right here, this is that historic moment. October 22nd, 1975. Venera 9 sent this image back to Earth. It was the very first photograph ever taken on the surface of another world. And what did we see? No oceans, no jungles, just this desolate, fractured, and honestly terrifying landscape of sharp, scorched rocks under a hazy, oppressive sky. But even with this incredible success, came this unbelievable frustration. The missions were just plagued by this simple, infuriating problem. The lens caps for the cameras kept getting stuck. On Venera 9 and 10, only one of the two cameras on each lander worked. Then, on Venera 11 and 12, both landers failed to open any of their lens caps. Can you imagine the frustration? They survived on the surface for nearly 2 hours, collecting all sorts of data, but couldn't send back a single picture. But then came Venera 13, the absolute crown jewel of the entire program. This mission was a stunning, unbelievable success. For the first time, we saw Venus in color, this alien world just bathed in an eerie orange glow. It had a microphone that actually captured the sound of wind on another planet. It drilled into the soil, analyzed it, and even confirmed there were Venus quakes. Just incredible. But you can't tell the Venera story without telling this next part. It might be one of the most absurd failures in the history of space exploration. On the follow-up mission, Venera 14, the camera lens cap popped off perfectly, and with 1 in a million luck, it landed in the exact spot where the soil testing arm was supposed to do its work. So what did the lander do? The multi-million-dollar instrument then proceeded to meticulously test the hardness of its own lens cap. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. It's an absolutely comical tragedy. So, after getting these tantalizing but really tiny glimpses from the surface, the Soviets made one final strategic pivot. They decided to stop trying to land altogether, and instead just map the entire planet from above. The last two missions, Venera 15 and 16, were orbiters. They were kitted out with powerful radar that could finally peer right through the planet's impenetrable clouds. For 8 straight months, they just circled Venus, systematically peeling back its veil and creating the very first complete map of its surface. All right, so after 2 decades of failure, frustration, and these moments of stunning success, what was the final picture the Venera program painted of our supposed twin planet? This is the Venus that the Soviets discovered. A world with a surface hot enough to melt lead, with pressure that can crush a submarine like a grape. An atmosphere that's basically all carbon dioxide with clouds made of sulfuric acid and winds that never, ever stop raging. A truly hellish, volcanic wasteland. So why did Russia never go back? The answer is actually surprisingly simple. They didn't need to. The Venera program didn't end in failure. It ended because it was a complete and total success. They set out to solve the mystery of what was hiding under the clouds, and they did. They had successfully explored hell, and frankly, there was no reason to go back. But you know, solving one mystery often just creates another one. The Venera missions confirmed the clouds are made of sulfuric acid. So that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to chew on. Why doesn't acid rain ever actually reach the surface of Venus? That sounds like a mystery for another time.